An old woman's car broke down 200 kilometers from home. A man in a small garage fixed it in 4 hours and charged nothing. 9 months later, those 4 hours ended a service manager's career and put a woman's name on a workshop door. Free work has a habit of coming back later, with interest. The old woman was Ronki, 68. Her daughter was Simei, 33. A mechanic, and the man in the garage was Jin Matsuda, 61. Everybody in that town knew what Matsuda used to be. Nobody said it. Simei had never heard of him. So when her mother called and said a stranger had worked 4 hours for free, Simei picked up the phone to find out what he really wanted. "Stay with me tonight. You will hear 3 words a customer said that 9 people heard, and nobody answered, and you will hear who stood up when an old man in a work jacket walked in. Before we get into it, tap subscribe. It is free, and it helps this channel more than you know. And tell me in the comments where you are watching from tonight. I read every one. Now, let me take you into that dealership. And let me say the thing about Simei properly, because it matters for everything that comes after. She was a better mechanic than any man she has ever worked with. That is not me being kind about her. That is the certificates, and it is the work. Simei Bakari had been a mechanic for 11 years. She started at 19 in her uncle's yard, on cars nobody else would touch. She did her qualifications at night for 6 years. She holds 2 manufacturer certifications that nobody else in her workshop holds. Both of them are on the wall by the coffee machine. Nobody reads the wall. She was the best diagnostic technician in that building. Everybody there knew it. They knew it the way people know a thing without ever once saying it. Here is how her week actually looked. Oil changes, tire rotations, recalls, the jobs that pay by the unit and teach you nothing. The engine work went to 3 men, 2 of whom had been there less time than her. She raised it twice. Both times she was told the same thing. Customers can be funny about it. Nothing personal. You have heard that sentence. Somebody has said it to you, or to somebody you love, in exactly that tone. Now here is the specific thing, the named thing. Hold on to it. In March, a man brought in a saloon car with a noise on the front left. Simei went out to the bay and started to tell him what she thought it was. He looked past her shoulder into the workshop and said 3 words. He said, "A real mechanic?" Not a question to her, a request. Over her. And Kubo, the service manager, standing 4 feet away, said, "Of course, sir." That is the whole thing right there. Not the customer. The customer was nobody. It was Kubo. It was the speed of it. There was not 1 second of hesitation in that man's voice. 9 people in that workshop heard it. Every single one of them found somewhere else to look. Remember those 3 words. They come back at the end of this in a room where a very senior person has to sit and listen to them. Now, the 12th of May. Ronke Bakare, 68, drove down the coast to see her sister. 200 kilometers from home, on a Sunday, the front left of her car started making a noise. She kept driving, because that is what her generation does. By the time she came off the expressway, it was loud enough to frighten her. She pulled into the first garage she could find. It was a 2-bay place with a hand-painted sign. There was an old car under a sheet at the back that had not moved in years. A man in his 60s came out, wiping his hands. He listened to the wheel for about 9 seconds. Then he told her not to drive it another kilometer. He put it on the lift. Front left wheel bearing gone. He also found a brake line that was 2 months from failing. He did the bearing. He did the line. He checked the whole car. It took him 4 hours. He made her tea twice. Then he told her there was nothing owed. She argued. He would not take it. She left her name and her daughter's number on the counter because she did not know what else to do. That was the mistake, from his point of view. Because Simei called him that same night. She was not warm about it. She had spent 11 years in a trade full of men who invent problems for women who do not know cars. She assumed she had found another one. So she went at him with the only weapon that actually works, which is technical questions. She asked what he replaced. He told her. She asked which side. He told her. She asked what the bearing sounded like at 40 and what it sounded like at 80, and he answered both, correctly, without pausing. Then he said, "You know cars." She said, "I am a technician." And Jin Matsuda said the sentence that changed the temperature of that phone call. He said, "Then you should look at the part. I kept it. Somebody has stamped that bearing to look like it came from the factory, and it did not." Simei stopped talking for a moment, because she had seen a bearing fail like that in March, and another one in April. Both on cars her own dealership had serviced. She drove down on the Saturday with cash in her pocket to pay him for her mother's car. He would not take that either. So she stood in his garage and looked at his work instead, which is how mechanics apologize. The line he had run was tidier than anything in her own workshop. He had done it old style, with the bends made by hand. She asked him where he trained. He said his father's garage, which was that garage. There was a small shelf above the parts rack with his father's photograph on it, and a cup of water in front of it that somebody changed every morning. He came down from Osaka at 19 to work in that building. He has never lived anywhere else since. He held the lease through everything he did afterwards, and he will not say why, and everybody already knows why. She noticed some things while she was there. She noticed that the car under the sheet at the back was worth more than the building. She noticed that men who came in did not haggle. Then a very expensive vehicle pulled up outside. It stayed 11 minutes. A young man in a suit came in. He bowed to Jin Matsuda. He did not sit down. She worked it out on the drive home. She sat in her car outside her own flat for 20 minutes and thought about whether she was going back. Then she went back the following Saturday. And most Saturdays after that. Here is what she says about it now. She says she had spent her whole working life around men who wanted her to be smaller. She says she found the most dangerous man she had ever met, and he was the only one who ever handed her a tool without checking whether she knew what it was for. That is the entire romance in this story for a long time. Two people in a garage, not talking much, passing each other spanners. There was a kerosene heater in that second bay. He lit it before she arrived on cold Saturdays. The place would be warm when she got there. He never once mentioned doing it. He made tea at 11 and at 3. He kept the good mug for her without ever saying it was hers. Once, in January, she fell asleep on the bench seat of the car under the sheet, after 5 hours on her back under it. He put his own jacket over her and went and worked outside in the cold for 40 minutes. You can decide for yourself what that is. She knew exactly what it was. He put a bench in the second bay for her. He never announced it. It was just there one Saturday, cleared and swept. Then he let her work on the car under the sheet. It was his father's. He had not let anybody touch it in 19 years. She asked him once, straight out, what he had done for a living before the garage. He told her the truth in about 11 words and did not decorate it. She asked whether he was still that. He said he had handed it on at 58 and that people still came and that he could not stop them coming. Then he said, "You may want to think about it." Take your time. She asked him whether people had been hurt. He said yes. He did not soften it, and he did not explain it away, and she says that is the only reason she believed anything he told her afterwards. She thought about it for a week. Then she came back. Meanwhile, at the dealership, the bearings kept failing. 4 now. Then 5. All within 11 weeks. All on cars serviced in that building. Simei took her file to Kubo in June. Photographs, part numbers, the stamp comparison. 3 failed units she had kept. Kubo told her she was mistaken. Then he told her to stop keeping parts. Then he told her on the 29th of June that she was not to speak to customers about it. So she did the arithmetic on the invoices. Genuine parts billed. Counterfeit parts fitted. The difference going somewhere. 11 weeks was just what she could see. It had been running for 2 years. And on the 3rd of July, a car came in for its service with a family booked to drive to Nagano the next morning. 2 adults, 3 children. She found the same fake bearing on the front right, already scored. She refused to release the car. Kubo signed it off over her head. He handed the keys to the customer himself in the waiting area and apologized for the delay. Simei Bakare walked out into that waiting area and told the customer, in front of Kubo and 11 other people, not to drive that car to Nagano. She was suspended within the hour. She was dismissed 9 days later for gross misconduct. Kubo's report said she had removed parts from the premises for personal gain and made false statements to a customer. There is always a man with rank who suddenly discovers a policy. Endo, the workshop foreman, had told her privately in May that she was right about the bearings. Endo said nothing at all in July. 11 years. 2 certifications on a wall nobody reads. Escorted out of a building where she was the best technician they had. She was out of work for 4 months. Let me put that in real terms for you. 11 years of tools, bought one at a time, sitting in a box in a flat. A rent payment she made by selling a torque wrench she had owned since she was 22. 2 certifications, and a dismissal for misconduct on her record, which in that trade travels faster than any reference. Nobody in that town would touch her. 2 garages did not answer her calls. One told her honestly that they had heard she took parts. Kubo's lie was doing exactly what it was built to do. Her mother's car sat outside her flat the whole time, running perfectly, on the parts a stranger had fitted for free. That is the part she cannot talk about without stopping for a second. She did not go to Matsuda for help. I want that on the record. She went to his garage on Saturdays because she had nowhere else to be. She worked on his father's car. She said nothing about the dismissal for 3 weeks. He found out from her mother. Those 2 had started speaking on the telephone, which nobody had authorized. He asked Simei one question. He asked whether she still had the parts. She said she had 3 bearings, the stamped photographs, and 11 weeks of invoice comparisons in a box under her bed. He said, then this is not over. It is only slow. The manufacturer's regional audit was held on the 9th of November, not a court, something worse for a service manager. 22 people in a conference room. The regional director, 2 technical inspectors, legal, the dealer principal. Kubo was there in a very good suit. Simei had been called as a former employee, which is a polite way of saying they expected her to be brief. She was not brief. She spoke for 19 minutes. Part numbers, stamp depth. The metallurgy report she had paid for herself out of 4 months of no wages. 5 failures in 11 weeks against a network average of none. Then the invoice work. Genuine parts billed to 1,100 customers. Counterfeit parts fitted. 2 years of it. A technical inspector asked her who had first identified the counterfeit stamp. And Simei said, "A garage 200 kilometers from here. He kept the part." The director asked whether that person could attest to the chain of custody. She said he was outside. Jin Matsuda came in a work jacket. He carried the bearing from Ronki Bakari's car in a plastic box, labeled and dated in his own handwriting. The 12th of May. 2 men in that room stood up. One was the dealer principal. One was a man from legal who had grown up in that town. The regional director did not know who Matsuda was and asked, reasonably, who he was. And the dealer principal said, "Sir, that is Matsuda." Nobody explained it further. The room understood it perfectly well. Matsuda handed the part over. He answered 4 questions. The date, the condition of the car, where the wheel had been sitting. Then somebody asked the question that finished it. They asked who had examined the failed bearing on the 12th of May and identified it as counterfeit. And Jin Matsuda pointed at the woman at the end of the table and said, "She did." On the telephone. In about 90 seconds. Then he said, "She is the only real mechanic in that company." Kubo was dismissed that week and referred onward, and the counterfeit supply line was pulled apart by people who do not hold conference calls. The 1,100 customers were contacted. The Nagano family's car was recalled, and the bearing was scored through, and the report says what it says. Endo, the foreman who said nothing, kept his job. He asked to be moved to another site in January, and nobody stopped him. The manufacturer offered Simei Bakari a regional technical role in December. She turned it down. She used the settlement and 4 years of savings. She took over a 2-bay garage with a hand-painted sign, proper lease. Her name on the door, painted by hand, because she wanted it to look like the old sign. It cost her almost everything she had. She has never once described it as a risk. The old man is in the 2nd bay most days. He is officially retired, and he has never once acted like it. He still will not take money from anybody over 70. She has stopped arguing about it. The car under the sheet runs now. She finished it in March, on the anniversary of the 3 words. His father's car. Her rebuild. He cried and denied it. And Ronki Bakari drives down the coast every few weeks to check on the pair of them. She is 68. That car has never once been back on a lift. Here is what this story is really about. Some debts are not meant to be settled. He would not take her money. She could not make him. That is because a debt like that is not a bill. It is an instruction. You do not pay it back. You pass it on to the next person standing at the counter with no idea how bad their situation is. And one more thing, because it needs saying plainly. If you are the best person in your building and everybody there knows it, and nothing changes, understand something. It is not a mystery. It is a decision. And somebody is making it on purpose. Keep your certificates. Keep your parts in a box. Keep your receipts. If you made it this far, tell me one thing in the comments. What was the moment you stopped scrolling? The 3 words, the phone call, or the man in the work jacket? And if you know a woman who is doing the best work in a place that will not say her name, send this to her tonight. She needs to hear how this one ends.